We are going to begin the funeral service for Mr. Wayne Elliott Silverman. If you have a cell phone, I'd ask you kindly to place it in the silent mode at this time or turn it completely off. I'd also like to welcome friends via live stream. On behalf of the family, thank you for attending. Services will be conducted by Rabbi Shimi Suskin, the Chabad of Vernon Hills.
I would first like to begin by expressing my condolences to Wayne's family, starting with Susie, his wife, his parents that are here, to all four of his children, siblings, and all those who are here, family and friends. I actually want to begin with quoting Wayne's father, who mentioned to me something here just a few minutes ago. We were talking as I came in, and he said to me that over the years he would have a conversation with a rabbi, and they would talk regularly about Judaism and about belief. And he said to me that after all those discussions and conversations, they came to one conclusion: that we'll never fully understand, that we just don't know, was his words. And that's really what I would like to begin by saying. What we're doing here today is very unfortunate. It's very sad. Wayne was 62 years old, suffered for many, many years. Back and forth to the hospital, back and forth to rehab, fighting for so long. No one should pass at such a young age. No wife should lose their husband so young. No parents should ever have to bury their child. And no children should need to bury their father so young. And I'm sorry for your loss. If anyone ever goes over to you and gives you any sort of reason and understanding for why we're doing what we're doing here today, they're lying to you. We don't understand. We just don't know. I would like to share with you just a small part of a conversation I had with Wayne a few months ago. I would try to visit him as often as I can. Obviously, when he lived in Vernon Hills, we were very close. When he moved downtown, it was a lot less. Once he got sick and moved back to the suburbs, again, it was more often. Then a few months ago, I met with Wayne individually, just the two of us. And he wasn't able to speak. He had his pen and paper, and we had a long conversation. And in that conversation, Wayne asked me a very difficult request, a difficult question to ask and make a request. It's hard to ask someone and to talk about what should happen after they pass away. But that was that conversation. And Wayne asked me if I would stand here for him today. And I responded to Wayne and I said, Wayne, I don't know if there's any other person in the last 15 years that I haven't not spent something with. I said, the Silverman family and me and my wife and my family have celebrated every Jewish holiday together multiple times. We've practically done almost every mitzvah we could do. We've done mezuzahs in Vernon Hills. We've done mezuzahs downtown. We've done mezuzahs back in Vernon Hills. We've celebrated our family's life cycle events together, including recently Susie's been to our son's bar mitzvah. We've done it all. Put tefillin together, lulav and esrog together. I remember one day Wayne asking me, Rabbi, could I come over and put tefillin on? And usually I would come to him to put tefillin on. And he said to me, no, I want to put tefillin on for a specific reason. And he came to Chabad, and I said, Wayne, what's the reason? He said, because I recently just got a picture from my son Karlin in tefillin with the rabbi in Gainesville, and I want to send a selfie back. We've done every mitzvah together. And I said to Wayne in that conversation, I will do this mitzvah for you and with your family as well. Because we have to be there for each other, for the good times and for the bad. And today is a difficult day. It's been a very, very long journey for Wayne and for his entire family. He fought all the way to the end. Wayne never gave up. He never said ever, I'm done. I've never heard it, and I always asked him, I said, Wayne, I would ask him how you're doing, and he would say, I'm good. And he would be physically say he was okay, even though he wasn't, but his mood, his spirit was okay. He was always optimistic. And all the way until the very end, he was asking me about myself. He was asking me, tell me the updates, what's going on with Chabad, what's going on with the family. He never gave up. And the fight was for many, many years. And every time he won, his opponent came back. And he fought and he won. Back and forth for many, 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 many years. And I want to say to his family, you should know and you should feel good that you stood by him every single day in this fight. You supported him physically, mentally, emotionally, and I know it was very difficult for you. Very difficult for his wife Susie, his parents, his children, his whole family. It wasn't easy. But you should feel good and comforted knowing you did the best you are obligated to do. And Wayne will forever be grateful for that. In just a moment, we're going to hear from various family members. I just want to say that during this whole experience, I would go to visit Wayne, and every single time, I would ask him a question, because he would always ask me to do a mitzvah together, whether it was mezuzah or tefillin or lenesrig, and if we didn't have any of those because it wasn't a holiday, he would ask me to say Shema together, even till the very end when he didn't have the strength to put tefillin on, and he just couldn't do it. He would say, but could we still say the Shema? And he couldn't even say it. He would mouth it. And all of these times I would ask him about his connection to Hashem, to Almighty God. And that faith and that belief never wavered, even in the most difficult and painful circumstances. And for me personally, as someone who believes in Hashem and spreads that message day in and day out, I could say, Wayne, you are a real source of inspiration. To be able to not just say thank you when times are good, but also say, I believe in you and I trust in you, even when it's extremely, extremely difficult. And I take that to heart, and I hope that the family who are going through a very, very difficult time with this entire experience should know that Wayne never lost his faith, never lost his will, never lost his determination to live, to enjoy life, and to be a God-fearing Jew. On that note, I would like to begin to ask the family to please come up. We're going to begin with Colin, his son, to share a few words.
Hello, everyone, and thank you really for being here today for me and my family. I can't believe this is really happening right now. I had dreams of this moment for a really long time. Sometimes in my dreams, I would come out here and give a tight five. And I would never bomb because you all have to at least give me a pity laugh. Sometimes I would come out here and speak in quotes about my dad's wise words of wisdom. Today, now that it is real, I decided to forget about all those dreams and just to speak from the heart and read the words that I wrote down earlier today. Not many youngest kids with a 10-year age gap get to say that they were planned, but as many of you know, my parents were going until there was a boy. Or at least that's what my father said. My mother would say 4 was enough. Either way, lucky for me, 4 was all they needed. Growing up, I had the fitting nickname of Bud. The only way to explain this nickname was I was my dad's buddy, so the nickname came to be. And over the 28 years, he was not only my father, but truly my best friend. My father would say that he's the luckiest man of all. He married the love of his life, his high school sweetheart. He had a close and deep relationship with all 4 of his kids, and he built an incredible business from scratch. Growing up, whether it was from me and my dad or being my coach for 15 years in sports, my dad was always there. This no doubt was not easy. In reality, my father had 5 kids, the 4 of us and the 5th being the office. The joke in the family was, when he was talking to a client on the phone or saw one in passing, that must be client number 24334, or how in the world does he remember all of you? But as a lot of you here can contest to, not only did he know every client he did work for, he knew them well, and he cared for them and their interests deeply. After graduating and dipping my toes at Big 4 public accounting, my dad knew how much I hated it, and I was worried I spent 4 years getting a degree I didn't even want. He then offered if I wanted to leave and come join him. I was very hesitant. As the saying goes, family is hard, business is hard, family business is really hard. However, that wasn't the case with my dad. I truly loved every day working with him. When he started to get sicker, I was taking on more of his workload, and I know the look on some of the clients' faces when I walked in the room and I wasn't wearing the black pants, white shirt, red tie that they were accustomed to. However, over time, I think they realized the apple did not fall far from the tree. My father instilled his love for sports and travel into all of us. Every year, the 6 of us would travel all over the world. And yes, some of those trips, the 6 of us shared one hotel room and a 5-person passenger car. I guess things somewhat changed when Kayla joined the picture. It's hard to talk about my father without mentioning his cubbies. In 2016, he was offered to go to Cleveland for Game 7, but instead, he brought us all into town, and we watched them win Game 7 at one of our favorite restaurants a block from Wrigley Field. They did it. He saw his Cubs win the World Series. He really was a lifelong Cub fan. I could confidently say this because while he was passing, the TV was stuck to the marquee network. And in some ways, I think I could say that Jed Hoyer might be responsible for my dad's death. One of my father's heroes was Jimmy Valvano. My father ran into the legendary coach just months before he lost his battle to cancer. My dad never understood how Jimmy could be so sick. He looked so great. He was so nice to talk to. You would never have known. This inspired him when he got sick to fight like hell, and through the majority of those 12+ years of battling cancer, most of the time you truly never would have known how sick my dad really was. My father lived a great life, and one that I know with 100% certainty he had no regrets. Jimmy V had a famous quote that my dad loved. We should do 3 things every day in our life. Number 1 is laugh. You should laugh every day. Number 2 is to think. We should spend some time in thought. And number 3 is you should have your emotions move to tears. If you laugh, you think, and you cry, that's a full day. That's a heck of a day. You do that 7 days a week, you're going to have something special. My dad really had something special until his final day because he lived that way. He laughed, he thought, and he was moved to tears. When speaking to so many of you today, you'll hear so many great words, stories, and characteristics of my father. My dad was brilliant, loving, and so kind to everyone he came across. The one thing I'm jealous of most of you is the thing that I'm most jealous of most of you here was time. Most of you have known him for the better part of 30+ years or longer. But what I'm not jealous of is for all those short 28 years, I got to call him Dad. He had an amazing life, and while too short, was one that will leave a lasting legacy. Padge, we will miss you, and we just love you so, so much. Samara, you are next.
It's fitting. So I'm not a writer. Unlike my siblings, I wrote bullet points to keep me on track. One of the last times I saw my dad before I left for a trip, my dad's cousin had left Kit Kats in his room, and I was eating one, and I didn't know if he could smell anymore, but I thought I would, take a fresh one and, try to have him smell. And instead of using his nose, his mouth opened, wanting a bite. And I had to tell him, no, I can't give it to you, you'll choke. But it brought a laughter to me that day, because it was also the last day I saw a smile from his face. I'm sure a lot of my siblings and my brother covered many important memories of a great timeline. I wanted to keep the speech, simple. I really cherished our one-on-one days together, whether people were out of town or, it was just, Sunday daughter day, and I remember he would take me places to like Kittyland, and like he didn't say much, he didn't really ask questions. It was just a day to spend together. We would take day trips to Lake Geneva, go on the boat tour, get some fudge. When it was late and it was, no one else was around, our dinners together were always important. I remember in grad school, I would sometimes pick my classes that term based on when he was staying up in the burbs, so we'd have someone to eat with. Our college visit tours, he was, the ringleader of that, of organizing and planning the days. We went to New York in a 24-hour period. We just brought in, a personal bag, and we ended the day at a Jewish deli where we learned in New York they do not have chocolate phosphates, and we were sad. Getting Red Lobster when my mom was out of town was always a highlight. We would order, the big, feast thing of, shrimp and scallops and lobster and all these sides. And I always cherished, those small moments. When I was in high school, I had an opportunity to speak at a leadership conference to middle school students. I'm not sure how, they approved me for it, but as soon as I, got the offer, I came home to a binder filled with a speech already inside of it that my dad wrote. I did not ask him to do this. He was not required to do so, but it meant a lot to him to do this together. And he would make, me practice over and over. We would, edit together. For those that know him, he was a great speechwriter. He was our voice at Passover Seders. If Hollywood, ever met him, I would put him, with, James Earl Jones and Morgan Freeman as the narrator. He was the reason I knew I always wanted to go to grad school, but he finally gave me the motivation to initiate the process. I remember it was probably around this time, many, many years ago. And I think I filled out the application to DePaul that same day that we had the conversation of, what are you waiting for? Just do it. And I wrote it that night to have the motivation to do so. Many of you know I visit him a lot. I always thought our souls were sort of intertwined. When he was sad, I was sad. When he was anxious, I was anxious. But when he was happy, I was happy. His sense of strong Jewish identity has been instilled in all of us. When we were each of us were looking at colleges, he had, just one wish, that it had a Jewish community, whether that was Hillel, Chabad, whatever it may be. It didn't have to be a big population. It didn't have to be, a large majority or something. He just wanted an active Jewish community for all of us. For those that know, my sister Whitney and I were in Scotland just up to a few days ago, and we were on a Jewish tour, funny enough, when we got the news of his passing. And, it was very fitting because it was something that he would have done himself. That wherever we were, anywhere in the world, whether we could go to a Shabbat dinner, a museum, whatever it may be, we try to instill one Jewish activity on all of our vacations. For those that don't know, Padge had a wish in the afterlife. If he could turn it into anything, he would want to be a bear in Alaska, having all the salmon that he wants, which made my sister Whitney start sending us pictures of Fat Bear Week on a regular basis. And he would see those pictures and that's what I want. He was so strong. He, as everyone has pointed out, saw the opportunity of, happiness and determination, and I really think that's what kept him alive so long, was a strong support from everyone. And, even when he couldn't speak anymore, he could then write. And then when he couldn't write anymore, he could give us facial expressions. And when, we couldn't see a smile, we would see an eye open. And all those moments, however small, however short they were, the last few months, it's all I needed. So to our medical marvel, who's defied odds and expectations, our true Disney leader and grand master planner, a dedicated father of the Jewish faith, I say one last thing. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, adieu. Who's next? Jeff.
Speaking on my behalf will be Tigger, as he has always been a part of this family's life. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jeff. I'm Susie's brother, and honored to have been Wayne's brother-in-law for the last 43 years. When Susie and Wayne started dating, Wayne and several of his high school friends were part of a B'nai B'rith group called Manor AZA. And if there's anybody in this room that knows anything about Manor AZA, we had a song that cannot be said in a public setting such as this due to the content of words. But in honor of Wayne, I will recite the few words that I can. Manor once, manor twice, holy, and I will stop there. Wayne was the reason why my friends and I at 13 in 8th grade, joined Manor AZA. And Wayne has been somebody I've looked up to for 43 years. From day one, he radiated he didn't know he was Padge back then, but his Padgeness came out at a very early age. And he was somebody you wanted to be like. Don't be like Mike, be like Wayne is something that I learned in 43 years that you want to be. When Susie and Wayne had been dating for 5 years, there's the infamous time that my sister still hates me and my father for the, hey, we're getting married. And the comment that mostly came from my dad, but I agreed with, was, it's about time. Susie and I talked about this the other day, and sorry, Dad, but she's still pissed at you. When my father died in 1985, it hit Wayne very hard. Wayne loved our dad. And being the person, me, that had to tell Wayne and Susie the day that our father passed, it created a hole in his heart that was very big. But Wayne filled some of that hole by being our Passover leader before he became the leader of Rugrats and video clips. He would sit in the chair that my dad occupied for many years. Exactly. And he would lead our services with excitement. There was nothing boring about what Wayne Silverman did. The one and only time in our 43 years together that Wayne ever raised his voice to me is a moment that will live in infamy, as my nephew Colin put. If anybody here knows the story of Wayne and his office cleaning, will you please raise your hand? So, many years ago, Wayne and his client, Don Sachs. Don, I don't know if you're here, but if you're here, Don made a career out of having a mail order bicycle business. He and Wayne decided to try a side shoot business that involved watches. Aptly named watches. Very creative, of course. Well, who was the day-to-day face of that business? This guy. It was really my first job. Well, Wayne was out on a audit this particular day. Manning Silverman was housed in a Prospect Heights shopping mall, and Wayne's office was across from the watch office. I thought I would do Wayne a favor. I cleaned his office. Anybody that knows Wayne knows that Wayne was the original slob. His office was a pile of everything. In fact, it came to the point where in his later years, when they moved to the Vernon Hills office, or Lincolnshire office, sorry, he had to meet people in the conference room because his office was still the repository of paper piles. So Wayne comes back from that particular audit, and for the one and only time in his 43 years of knowing me, yelled at me for messing up his system. For neat people like me, I don't know how that's a system, but it was Wayne's. And it took that for Wayne to show me that one bit of anger. 43 years, one bit of anger, that's quite a human being. Wayne was a great human, a great father, a great friend, a great brother-in-law. He was the love of everybody, and he loved everybody. Jed Hoyer definitely not on his list. And there's probably a few others that we could add from the Cubs team. Wayne may not be here physically, but he will be with everyone in heart, in spirit, in mind, in love, because of who he is. Wayne's greatest gift to me, as hard as it was on his wife Susie and on his 4 children, Whitney, Samara, Jordan, and Colin. Kayla, you weren't around here for me to chase in the house like I was Colin. So back then, when Wayne was working his business to the bone, thank you, I'm glad you agree. I came over every Thursday night to the Silverman house in Buffalo Grove to be Uncle Jeff. Now, mind you, my nieces and nephew have never been asked to call me uncle because I always felt that I was a friend to them and I didn't need to be called that. And I would come over every Thursday, and even though Wayne had to work and was away from his family until often 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night every Thursday, for 20 years I came to the house to be with my sister, to take Whitney, Samara, and Jordan to various events, most of them dance-related. And what it did for me was it grew my relationship with my sister. It made my nieces and nephew like my own children. He gave me a gift that will never, ever be forgotten, and that is the love of family, the love of all Silvermen, and the closeness that we all had together. Because he had to be gone, he let me be part of their lives in such a meaningful way. My final thing I'd like to say about Wayne is not actually about Wayne, but it's about something, again, that he loved, the Cubs. I don't know if anybody else coming up here is going to do this, so I will. White Sox fans, you're going to have to suck it up. But I'd like to give him one last rounding rendition of Go Cubs Go. So I'll start it off. Go Cubs go, go Cubs go. Hey Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are going to win today. Ho Cubs go. One reverse. Whoa Cubs go. Hey Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today. And with that, Wayne, I promise they will win another World Series. Because I have to believe that. And I also have to believe the White Sox will set the record.
So I am wearing this sweatshirt, this Tulane sweatshirt, because it was Wayne's. Years ago, I walked in and Wayne exclaimed that we must have sibling telepathy because we both went to New Orleans and picked out the same Tulane sweatshirt. I told him that I had not bought this sweatshirt, that it was given to me by my daughter, Lindsey, who had been given the sweatshirt by her cousin Jordan, who had found it in her closet and decided that she did not want it. Lindsey then gave it to me. Wayne stated that he had been looking for this sweatshirt, and it must have been mistakenly ended up in his daughter's Jordan's closet. I offered it back to him, but he told me to keep it. My brother's sweatshirt became my favorite piece of clothing, especially because it was his. First, I want to thank everyone for being here. We appreciate it. Some have come from out of town, and we can't tell you how much it means to us that you have made such an effort to be here. Wayne is my older brother by 4.5 years. I have never known life without him. Growing up, it was only he and I and our parents. We grew up in a house in Skokie near Oakton Park in the 1970s. Only having one sibling, Wayne had an enormous impact on my life. From childhood to adulthood, we remained close. I will always miss Wayne, as no one will be able to take his place as my big brother, role model, and big supporter. Wayne fought a battle and went through so much for the last 12 years. He was so brave and had such an amazing will to live. He fought for every moment he could to live and to be with his family as long as he could. Even when Wayne was in the nursing home and couldn't talk, seeing him and just being with him always made me feel better. I hope now Wayne will always be with me and us in our hearts and in spirit that will always make us feel better. Some things about Wayne. Wayne was a sports enthusiast, as others have said. He loved going to Cubs games, Bears games, Bulls games, Blackhawks games. He even followed the Cubs around the country to watch them play. He would even become quite expressive and animated as he would get entrenched into a game. One of his favorite pastimes was talking about sports with family and friends, although I was not able to participate in that as I knew nothing about sports. Wayne also, as you've heard, loved his job in accounting. He co-founded an accounting firm around 1986. Through his long hours of work and his unending drive and dedication, he made his firm grow and grow into a huge success. Wayne had a brilliant mind and had a sheer joy of providing people accounting, tax, and financial advice. He was so very proud of his work accomplishments, as he deserved to be. Wayne also had a fondness of betting. He liked going to casinos, horse races, and even greyhound dog races. And Wayne had a great love of travel, which is what we got from our parents. He loved planning vacations and had many adventures with family on his trips. But by far, the most important thing to Wayne was family. First, our parents, David and Madelyn, had provided Wayne and I always with unlimited love and support. My parents have been at Wayne's side throughout. Growing up, we also were very close with our grandparents. Our paternal grandparents, Grandma Frida and Grandpa Sid, and our maternal grandparents, Grandma Blanche and Grandpa Joe. This provided such a stable, loving foundation for Wayne and I to grow up with. As an adult, Wayne's heart and soul was all about his wife, Susie, and their 4 children, Whitney, Samara, Jordan, and Colin. He got married and started a family at a young age in his early 20s. He and Susie raised their 4 children in Buffalo Grove and then moved to a house that they designed and had built in Vernon Hills. When not working, Wayne spent as much time as he could with his family. He participated in me and my dad programs with his kids, coached some of their sports teams, supported them in dance, swimming, cheerleading, BBYO, and later at their colleges at Tulane, Drake, University of Florida, University of Illinois Champaign, and DePaul University. He and Susie were the biggest fans at their schools, always bragging and wearing their kids' school paraphernalia, therefore the sweatshirt. Wayne always planned fun brunches and dinners for the family at restaurants all around Chicagoland area. Sharing desserts among a family of chocoholics was very entertaining, as forks would be flying. Wayne planned annual Great America trips, organized New Year's Eve celebrations in other countries and states that did not always work out well, periodic horseback riding, whitewater rafting, and many vacations, including a week's stay at Le Chateau in Lake Geneva, which was the opposite of its name. Wayne always provided valuable guidance and advice to Susie and their kids and made sure that they were always well provided for. I feel so lucky that Wayne's and my family, being me, Steve, and our 2 daughters, were all so close and our kids grew up together. Wayne and my husband, Steve, were close from the very first time they met, which was on our first date. They even were in a sexy legs contest on a princess cruise together, which made for many jokes. Wayne was the first to come to the hospital when I gave birth to my 2 daughters. My daughter, Lindsey and Brian, asked Wayne to officiate their wedding in Abilene, Texas. He did an amazing job and looked the part. He put so much effort into it, and it was great. Our families traveled together so many times, including to Costa Rica, Panama, Belize, Honduras, Mexico, Disney World, Disneyland, and California. We appreciate how loving, generous, and supportive Wayne and Susie always have to be to me and my family. Wayne also had so many close friends over the years from the neighborhood, Cleveland Grammar School, Oakview Junior High, which is now McCracken Junior High, Niles East High School, and Roosevelt University. His friendships from AZA and Sammy's fraternity continued over the years, and many of those friends were so wonderful and frequently visiting Wayne in the nursing home when he really needed their companionship. And our first cousin, Rob, went over and beyond in helping Wayne in every way he could. Wayne had a lifetime full of wonderful, precious moments. He enjoyed his life and sharing good times with us all. I believe Wayne will always be with us, smiling at our happy times, comforting us when we are sad, and reassuring us always that everything will be okay. Going forward, if you ever have a chance, make a bet on something or eat Wayne's favorite dessert, profiteroles, and remember Wayne while you do it, and do it in his honor. Wayne, thank you for being a wonderful brother to me. I love you very much and always will.
So some months ago, when Wayne could still communicate in writing, I asked him, I've been thinking a lot about our relationship over the years, and I asked him if I could have the honor of saying a few words today. And he told me I could, and I promised him that I would speak from the heart, although I might have to write things down because my memory isn't what it used to be. And I told him I hoped it would be worthy of him. And he told me he had absolute confidence that it would be, but if he disagreed, he would call me. So I'm going to take my phone off silent. And here we go. When I first met Wayne's dad, David, he showed very little concern for me. This was despite me being the complete stranger in his house who was apparently dating his daughter. In fact, he showed more interest in the half-eaten sausage and pepperoni pizza in his living room, which I had brought with me. I recall thinking momentarily that we would bond over the other half, but alas, I slowly realized that the look on his face was not that of hunger and the accompanying hopefulness that I might offer to share, but rather shock, finding out all too late that he kept kosher. He didn't grill me at all about my intentions, my moral compass, employment status, or relationship with any local and non-local prison systems. However, he remained fairly concerned about the pizza I had brought with me and whether his daughter could possibly have been tainted by this unkosher violation of the coffee table upon which it sat. Bonnie, attempting to come to my rescue, gently yet sarcastically said to her dad, "You know, Wayne doesn't keep kosher. He may even eat pepperoni pizza." It seemed that I was suddenly saved. And not just because my future wife had just rolled Wayne under the bus with this revelation, but in the utter simplicity of his name merely being mentioned. Her dad suddenly shifted his eyes away from the pizza and fixated them on me. I suddenly seemed to have piqued his interest. He said to me, "Have you met Wayne?" I had, but only briefly, so I responded as such. The next 30 minutes were a blur. I cannot recall complete details, but I was introduced to a litany of Wayne's numerous accomplishments and attributes. He may as well have given me a resume and dating profile. Indeed, if I had not known that Wayne was married with one child in-house and another on the way, I may have thought that he was trying to offer him up as an alternative to his daughter. As I've learned, the family is a bit crackers. So I was left with two thoughts. The first was this man, David, is insanely proud of his son and was willing to let anyone who enters the house know it. The second thought was, who was the person Wayne had ended up marrying, and had his dad grilled her at all when they first met? And if he had grilled her and not me, what was I supposed to conclude from that? Was Bonnie the second fiddle? Did it not matter that I get grilled? Up to that point, I had thought she was the prize. So despite those questions, I made it through that day and the many days which followed. and Bonnie, who remained the prize, and I got married. Still, at family dinners, casual conversations, our wedding, the birth of our kids, David never passed on an opportunity to talk about Wayne. And yet I enjoyed hearing every word. And while that may sound strange, I can share with you that I never had that relationship with my own dad. I don't know if I ever made him proud, and reached a point where I simply didn't care. So you would think that I might have been a bit jealous, where truly I was not. Wayne and I became friends, then close friends, and then brothers. He was as close to me as I was with my own brother Joel, to whom I was inseparable in our youth. There is simply not enough time to go through all the ways in which Wayne impacted my life. At my wedding, he took me aside and said, "Today your wedding, tomorrow or soon after, you'll have kids. You're going to have a great life, and I can't wait to be there with you to help celebrate everything. You and I and our families are going to have a lot of fun together." And he promised me in the days that may not be fun, he would always be there for me. So amongst all of Wayne's attributes that his father pummeled me with many years ago, the one thing he missed was profit, because it has indeed been a great life, and it has been filled with celebration, and Wayne was with me for so many of those moments and inflection points which crossed my path. I love traveling with Wayne. Our families were fortunate enough to do so frequently. Whatever the fun brought to our travels together, the best part of those trips were in the evenings when Wayne and I would sit and chat by ourselves about most anything. Wayne was a great storyteller. I'm doing just fine. Yes, yeah, okay, thanks. I'll tell them. He sends his best. Wayne was a great storyteller, especially when recanting family events or history. He loved telling stories about family trips, gatherings, or Cubs games he had attended. And he loved talking about his dad, and not just about his exploits and cleaning his plate at every meal he sat down to. He told me frequently with a smile on his face that his dad invented the Clean Plate Club. And whether the stories were meant to poke fun at one of his dad's quirky habits or reminisce over the many things his dad taught him in his youth, they were always told with fondness and love. So I can look Wayne's dad in the eye and tell him with certainty that whatever over-the-top pride he had in his son, it was reciprocal. Wayne's pride in you was with him in every moment we spoke of you. He made me strive to be the best dad I could be to my own kids and hope that they may feel the same way. I told Wayne's kids recently that my biggest fear in learning that Bonnie was pregnant with Lindsey was wondering what type of dad I would be, not having the best education on the subject. But I was lucky enough to have my brother Joel early on and then Wayne as great role models. Of course, it didn't hurt that my wife was able to cover my mistakes. Wayne showed me through example that simply showing up, even if the only thing you brought with you were passion, encouragement, and love, that was more important than anything else you could do for your children. He simply made me a better dad. He gave joy to me and so many others in good times and bad. I have never seen someone fight so hard in illness to realize a bit of joy in each day. As his cousin Rob said to me this week, Wayne was heroic, if not only our hero. I will miss the part of my soul which has a hole in it now. I will miss seeing Whitney, Samara, Jordan, and Colin converse with him, laugh with him, argue with him, and love all the moments with him. I'll miss the countless nights out with him. I'll miss the nights with him, Susie, and Bonnie, dining and watching sports on TV, while Bonnie wonders why sports enthusiasts aren't equally transfixed with the Gilmore Girls. I'll miss seeing Wayne laugh over the "how many shrimp can you eat" stories, the sexy legs contest tale, the time we all went sledding, but he was the only one dressed like a terrorist. I will just plainly miss all of it, but I am so grateful to have been part of it. It was an unimaginable gift I hope I was worthy of.
very hard to summarize Padge, but I think that I can start by giving the uninitiated an explanation of what Padge is and how that came to be. I believe it started with my sister Jordan calling him Padre, which got shortened to Padge. Because of this, our mother became Madge. And the names Madge and Padge became so famous that many of our friends referred to them as that as well, including, I believe, one of Jordan's friends asking one day if their names really were Madge and Padge. I think ultimately, as what other people said, that what pushed my father to persevere for so long was the joy of his family, his friends, sports, travel, and community. He was so proud to be part of the Jewish community. Proud member of BBYO. He met Madge at Fall Convention 1979. Their first date was to see the movie Fiddler on the Roof, which is a really long date. But one of his favorite films that we had on 2 VHS tapes when I was a kid. It's part of me and my dad with all of us. We had our overnights at the JCC or up at Camp Bieber, voice of our family Seders. During COVID, when we had to do things remotely, he discovered his love of multimedia presentations and would curate video clips from Jewish a cappella to Louis Armstrong to one of his favorites, clips from the Rugrats Passover episode to accompany the proceedings. Padge would always get approached to put on tefillin, as Rabbi Shimi explained earlier. I think he sort of really gave off a vibe of, I am Jewish and I will probably say yes to your request. So he put on tefillin outside of Wrigley Field, one time on the platform of an L station. He loved learning about Jewish heritage and life around the world, like I said, visit synagogues, museums, restaurants. We had Shabbat dinner at the Chabad Rabbi of Vienna's house. We talked our way into the Mexico City's version of the JCC, which is under very tight security, and we were not invited. And he was once called to the Torah for an Aliyah wearing a Mickey Mouse jersey in what I believe was Italy. Venice, yes. We lit Hanukkah candles when he was in the hospital until someone told us that we were going to possibly blow up the hospital due to the oxygen. They nicely provided us with an electric menorah to use after that. Whenever we were there on Fridays, we would try to do, quick Shabbat rituals. If we didn't have the candles, we would pull up that, light on our phone, like if you're at a concert. Padge was really, he's dedicated to his family. He organized the annual Thanksgiving football game, which was a showcase of athletic talent. He made his 2 specialty foods, chicken noodle soup, which was real good, and grilled cheese, secret ingredient, cheese. His favorite things was to plan the next family trip, usually about 18 months in advance. He would dive into research of hotels, restaurants, and sites, often creating official itineraries, the most famous of which was a 2-week trip to Disney, which we called the Grand Master Plan. I've heard of his love of Disney. I think it combined many things, whimsy, joy, and competition. When back in the day, we had to use that unofficial guide to Disney book that gave all the best tips and tricks, to the modern era when he would wake up at 5 a.m. for 2 weeks in a row to make advanced dining reservations and devise the best rope drop and fast pass strategies. He made sure that we came to Disney every day with a plan, even if to the Millers' dismay, one time that plan was finishing dinner at the Epcot Pavilion, or the Canada Pavilion at Epcot, getting on the monorail, transferring at the Ticket and Transportation Center, getting back on the monorail, and running to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train to make our fast pass reservation. When we got older, he would joke and ask why all those parents were at Disney with their children at midnight. What kind of parents were they? When, of course, that was us many years prior. We had so many adventures, Caribbean cruises, Europe, Panama, Costa Rica. We would do many of his favorite things. He loved taking old-timey photos, which we did in places as different as Salzburg and Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. In Salzburg, we also honored one of his other favorite movies by taking the Sound of Music tour, where we sang the songs between the stops and pantomimed the dance that is done in the pavilion in the movie, because they don't let you in the pavilion anymore because someone tried to do the dance and broke their hip. But it wasn't just exotic trips. After our planned trip to Portugal in December 2020 got COVIDed, we ended up in the equally exotic New Buffalo, Michigan. But we did outdoor wine tastings, and we got a pop-up foosball table and games, and really made it work wherever we went. After every trip, Padge would get on the computer and create his Snapfish album, of which we would all get a copy, except for Michigan, that didn't get a Snapfish album. Another COVID tradition that Padge started was weekly family Zooms. At the beginning, we would play all sorts of games, from trivia to Family Feud to something called Murder Hotel, which is not as gruesome as it sounds. I won once. It took a year. It was really exciting. But it was a way for us to stay connected, something which was so important to him, and something that we continued to do up until, just recently. He would, we'd dial into the Zoom from the hospital or the nursing home, and even if you couldn't talk, he'd be there, whoever could join. He was the driving force that would bring things together. So other people have said, my dad was so smart, annoyingly smart, so smart. On his business card, rather than, given an official title, his title was Problem Solver, which we made fun of, but it was really true. Whether it was when any of us got a new job, we would always call him to make sure we were making the correct insurance and 401k allocations. And he did really love helping people. I remember on so many of those family vacations, taking calls on December 31st to fix some problem that had to be determined by the end of the calendar year. And one of the funny things that we bonded over later is, while he did finally get a child to become a CPA like him, and numbers terrify me, we did get to bond over many things during COVID, one of which being him from the tax side, me from the legal advisory side on the ERC credit and the PPP loan program. We had many a conversation about it, which was weird, but something that brought us together. The last 2 years were really challenging for my father health-wise, but he approached every day with more joy and fortitude than I think I have when suffering from a minor head cold. Even when he couldn't talk, he would write, everything from conversation to reminiscing over past trips to instructions on changes to be made to one of his fantasy teams, to questions about how the market was doing that day. His smile was infectious. It always brightened my day to see it in person or over FaceTime, and it lifted our spirits as much as his. And you could see the loyalty and love he inspired in others, whether he was in hospital in Florida or back here in Chicago. I think over the last 9 months, there was maybe only a handful of days where at least one person, if not multiple, did not come to visit. Family and friends from all periods of his life made the effort come and play a game of Connect Four, which he almost always won. Watch a Cubs game, play a game of Jeopardy, or more. There's so many people who came, and we're so grateful. But I'd like to thank two people in particular, his friends, Leon and Frank. They were our Sunday visitors when we were in Florida. It was Leon. When we got back, it was Frank. Almost every Sunday without fail, they were there, and it was an inspiring display of a lifetime of love. Many people have also spoken of my father's love of the Cubs and how we follow them around the country. What they did not indicate is that we also occasionally followed them into elevators, hotel pools, hotel bars. But that persistence did get the family invited by Ron Santo personally up to the broadcasting booth one time, where we had Ron sign a picture that I guess my mother probably secretly took. It was my brother standing in the pool in front of my father, pretending to take a picture of them, but really taking a picture of Ron Santo in the lawn chair behind them. He thought that was very funny and laughed when he signed it. While many years they disappointed him, of course, I'm glad he got to see the joy of 2016. And even this season, mediocre as it was, I'm glad we got to watch most of it with him. When last season ended, I honestly didn't know if I'd ever watch a Cubs game with him again. But we came to the first day of spring training down in Florida, and I opened up my laptop, and we put on Marquee. And we watched that game, and many others, and sang the stretch, and Go Cubs Go. For last Father's Day, we got him a cameo from Padge, the voice of the Cubs. And I'm really grateful for that. Ultimately, the last several months, while very hard, gave us all the opportunity to tell him so many times how much we loved him, how proud we were that he was our Padge. And the last time I saw him, he couldn't really open his eyes much or even give his big smile anymore. But I asked for a kiss, and he gave me one. And I'm grateful for that as a last memory of the many to keep in my heart. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you again to everyone for coming. I'm just sorry that Aunt Liz couldn't make it. Well, there have been many times over the past few years that have felt impossible. I look out to this congregation of people today and know how many lives my dad has had an impact on. There is truly nothing more humbling than someone telling you that their life happened because your dad entered the picture. I am not one that is an expert at the Marvel multiverse, but I'm happy to live in this timeline where my dad got to be proud of the life he led and the family he built. There is a song called I Will Follow You Into the Dark. I know Judaism is not super promotional on the afterlife, but as some of the song goes, if heaven and hell decide that they both are satisfied, if there is no one beside you when your soul embarks, then I'll follow you into the dark. Wayne was the guy that you follow into the dark. He was kind and smart and thoughtful, and when he was angry or upset, you knew he had a reason to be. He's the type of guy you go into battle for. Prior to meeting my dad, as Whitney mentioned, especially my friends in college, they would hear me tell stories about this guy named Padge. One even to the point where they had to clarify if my parents' names were really Madge and Padge. Growing up, we would often refer to my dad as Padre, until one day where I was yelling up the stairs to gain his attention. I was trying everything: dad, 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 father, Wayne, Padre, Padre, Padge. And from there, our family was forever changed. When my cousin Lindsey was pregnant with her second child, I bought a card and a gift for her baby shower, but had to leave early for work. The first few lines of the card were standard and sweet. I had room for one more line and needed something funny to close it out. I went with, "Don't worry about having your second kid. You really don't mess them up till you get to the third." When following up with my dad about the shower, I asked if Lindsey and Brian liked my gift and appreciated the card. He said they did, but he took issue with it. I was the third kid, and he felt like he worked hard not to mess me up. This reminds me of another story surrounding my dad's parenting style. I was born on Mother's Day in 1994. Now, at this point, my mom had my 2 older sisters, and my father did not get my mom a Mother's Day present. He spent the next 30 years trying to convince my mom that the baby was your gift. We were all clearly on my mom's side, as she was already a mom. She should have gotten a gift. My dad felt as though I should be offended, that my presence should be enough. Especially over the past 9 months, for my dad, our presence and the Cubs on Marquee Network were enough. We weren't, getting married or having a child or buying a house. Sure, we had wonderful life moments, but for the most part, my dad truly was living for our presence, for our voices, and for our smiles. And by the way, he really did have a great smile all the way to the end. I do hope his dreams are filled of every movie that John Goodman is in. Cubs Game 7 on repeat, Superbad on repeat. He really was like the #1 Superbad fan. He really loved the movie. Jewish tours in new cities, and an endless supply of profiteroles. I know Colin had mentioned Jimmy V. Great guy, great quotes. I will roll off of that and quote Stuart Scott in his SB speech. He said that when you die, that does not mean you lose to cancer. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner which you live. He lived well, and I will miss him so much. We have a video package that was actually coordinated by my dad when he first got really sick about 10 months ago. And so this is pre-approved and really contains a lot of our best memories.
farewell, auf Wiedersehen, adieu, 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 to you and you and you. Dun, 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 dun. The sun has gone to bed, and so much I. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
I want to thank all the family for sharing, taking the time to write your feelings, to write your thoughts, because the mitzvah of today is number one for the family to share their appreciation. And I think we all feel how Wayne did his best part to be the loving husband, child, father, and friend to all of us here. You know, I want to say that now, I know everyone said how much he loved sports and was a Cubs fan, so I am not a big sports guy at all. And I went to one Cubs game in my life. And I noticed from my seat that Susie and Wayne were there. We didn't know that they're going to be there, but now I know that I should have known because he was there all the time. And Susie and Wayne were there, and I spotted them. So I got out of my seat, and I ran to say hello. And I remember Wayne says to me, "Shimmy, sit down, sit down." So I sat down for a few minutes, and he turns to me, he says, "Shimmy, I didn't know you were a Cubs fan." And I could tell in that moment, as much as I've achieved in his eyes of being a rabbi, nothing was as good as being with him at a Cubs game. So I'm grateful I had that. Now, was mentioned earlier how wherever he would go to the Jewish sites. He even got an aliyah in a Mickey Mouse shirt. Whenever he would come to our synagogue, especially on the high holidays, I always gave him an aliyah. And Wayne was a Levite, Cohen, Levi, so he was a Levite. And so am I. And I always say to him that in honor of the high holidays, I'm going to give you my aliyah. I'm going to give it for you to have. And he always took it as an honor. And I could tell you that we have many Kohens in our synagogue, but we really haven't replaced the Levite ever since Wayne left. But every single year, even after he moved downtown, he would still come back for the high holidays. And I would give him his aliyah. And one year, he came in, and I said, "Hi, Wayne, how are you? How's everything?" And that's when he told me for the first time, it was right before Rosh Hashanah, is when he said to me, he's like, "Not very good." And I was surprised to hear. And that's when he told me about his diagnosis. It was right before Rosh Hashanah that year. But he kept coming and kept coming. And every year I would invite him and I would say, "I have your aliyah." And he would say he's going to make it. And he would come. And then I was going through my text messages with Wayne, and I realized in the last many years before he couldn't come at all, he would say, I'm going to try to get there, I'm going to fight this. They just found it came back. He always tried to come to the high holidays as much as he can. You know, I can't tell you that, you know, like he said in the afterlife, he would love to be a bear in Alaska eating salmon. That's not a dream that will be fulfilled. But what I could tell you is as follows, and I want to address something that his daughter Jordan said. We don't know what Judaism have to say about the afterlife. We actually do know. And the reason why we do know is because in every Jewish cemetery, it has a sign when you enter it. Every Jewish cemetery is called Beit HaChayim, which literally means house of life. Now, how crazy is that? We're going to the cemetery from here to the house of life. It's not a typo, it's not a mistake. In Judaism, we believe that this is a transition from one stage of life to another. Wayne will no longer physically be present in this world, but his soul that was born 62 years ago will continue to live. And God willing, on Yom Kippur, on the holiest day on the Jewish calendar, we include every Jewish soul, those who live physically and those who live spiritually. And Wayne will be included in those souls to continue to live on for now and forever, because we believe in the afterlife as Wayne's presence here in this world, as a neshama, as a soul. And he will continue to live on, and we'll recite Kaddish for the next year, starting from today at the burial. And I want to conclude that everything that happens in Judaism we believe is exactly the way it's meant to be. And I would try in the last few years, especially the last 2 years, to coordinate my schedule to visit Wayne on Fridays. Why? Because he loved when I would sing with him the Jewish prayers. I would try to put tefillin on, and I would also sing the Shalom Aleichem. And he wasn't able to speak at the very end, but he would mouth it. And you could see with his mouth how he would sing Shalom Aleichem with me. And he loved it. And then I would take a little bit of grape juice and I would say, Savrima Ranan, and I would make the Bor Priya Gafen. And with his mouth, he would open wide and say, Amen. And then, for most of the time, I would put tefillin on. In the last few months, he didn't have the energy to put tefillin on, but we would recite the Shema Yisrael. And he would say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. He didn't have to write it, but he would mouth it so loud and clear, the Shema Yisrael. And recently, he asked me on the paper, he said, what's going on in the world, in the whole world, especially in the land of Israel. He asked me what's going to be. And he asked me, could we say a prayer? And we always would start to incorporate the Oseh Shalom B'Romav, asking God to bring shalom, to bring peace to the world and peace to the Jewish people and peace to the land of Israel. Even while he was going through what he went through, he was thinking about the world and the Jewish people and the land of Israel that he loved so much. At my last visit 2 weeks ago, I said to Wayne, the high holidays are coming. Let's add a prayer, something we sing on the high holidays. And I sang with him the Avinu Malkeinu, something that he loved so much, the Avinu Malkeinu Ein Lanu Melech Ela Ata. Oh, his soul was shining. He was so happy. With the very, very little energy he had, we sang the Avinu Malkeinu. And he loved it. And I was about to leave, and I made a promise to Wayne. I said, Wayne, there's a custom in Judaism that the month before Rosh Hashanah, we get into the spirit, we get into the moods. And one of the things we do is we blow the shofar. We blow a short, small version of the shofar blowing to get into the atmosphere, to get into the spirit of the new year. And I said, Wayne, before the new year, I'm going to bring my shofar and I'm going to blow. I was never able to fulfill that promise I made, but I'm going to fulfill it here today. So we're going to conclude with 2 prayers and the shofar blowing. I'm going to ask them to please rise in their place and open up the pamphlet that they have in front of them. We have Psalm 23, followed by the Kel Mali Rachamim. I'm first going to say Psalm 23 in the Hebrew, and then we'll say it together in the English. Mizmer LeDavid Adinoi Royli Echsar B'nez Desha Yarbitzeni Almei Menucha Yisin Aleni Nafshi Yesheviv Yamcheni B'Maglit Tzedek Laman Shmai Gam Ki Elach B'Geitzal Maves La Irara Ka'ata Imadi Shiftecha Mishantecha Hema Yinachamuni Tarich Lefanei Shulchan Neged Tzeirai Deshanta B'Shem Reishi Kaisei Devaya Ach Toiv Chesed Yirdefuni Kol Yemei Chayai V'Shafti B'Veis Adinoi Yamim. Please let's say that together in the English in your booklet. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul and leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art thy rod, thy staff, they comfort me. Though anoints my head with oil, my cap renewed with surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'm going to say the Kel Mali Rachamim in the Hebrew. I'll also include Wayne's Hebrew name of Isser Zev, Ben David, and Malka. El Mali Rachamim, Sheichim Bamreimim, Hamtze Menucha Nechayna, Al Kamfi Ashchina, Bemalas Ktoishim Utahirim Kezoyer Harakia, Mazhirim Es Nishmas Isser Zev, Ben David, Umalka, Shahalach La'olamai, Ba'avor Shenachnu Mispalim Ba'daskaris Nishmasai, Began Eden Tehei Menuchasai, L'chel Bal Harachmim Yastireu B'Seiser Knafav La'olamim, V'yitzrer B'tzer Achayim Es Nishmasai, Adinai Hu Nachalasai V'yanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavai, V'Neimar, Amen. Let's say that together in the English. O God, full of compassion, though He dwells on high.
If you can remain standing, this does conclude the service here at the chapel. The family will be starting Shiva immediately following the interment today, here back at the chapel until 6:30 p.m. That's following the cemetery until 6:30 today at the chapel. And then Shiva will continue at Madelyn and David Silverman's residence, 5141 Weber Lane in Skokie, and both days 1 to 4 and then 7 till 9. That information is on your folders as well as our website, so you can refer to either. Interment will take place at Rose Hill Cemetery in Chicago. The procession will be forming in the parking lot. If you're going in procession, please keep in mind a few safety features. Keep your bright headlights on at all times. Put your emergency blinkers on. Attach the orange funeral sticker to the passenger portion of your front windshield. And we'll also attach a flag to the roof of your car. And please stay as close as safety permits to the car in front of you. The following people have been selected to serve as pallbearers. When I call your name, please step forward. Jeff Miller, Stephen Karlin, Rick Simmons, Frank Davis, Brian Whitman, and Rob Silverman. Please remain standing as the family and the rabbi are escorted from the chapel.